Pitting a boxer against an MMA fighter? Now that's always fun. But what if you find some common ground and ask them to fight, then who's going to win? Well, you're in luck because we're here today to turn this question into an absolute answer. Stay tuned as we go through some data to find out who's going to win a street fight, a boxer, or an MMA fighter. So let's get started. First up, what do both of them bring to the table? Alright, it's a given that in a boxing match, we'll see a boxer dominate the ring. But when it comes to a bout, an MMA fighter will definitely take the lead. But what if all the rules are thrown away? Who will win then? Let's figure that out by taking a look at what each of them has to offer. So if you take a look at a boxer, then well, their throws and punches are definitely going to have a lot more power behind them as compared to that of an MMA fighter. Now that's definitely a point that goes in their favor. But you've got to agree that an MMA fighter will have a wider range of skills that might be helpful if you take the rules off the table. So the best way for an MMA fighter to stand a chance is by sweeping the opponent off his feet before they manage to land a hit on their face.
The second comes out.
Oh, man! Look at that though, a beautiful head kick straight into a double leg. I mean, my word.
But what about the boxer? Well, their best bet is to dodge all the kicks their rival might throw their way and land that hit the opponent's trying so hard to avoid. Moving on, what might give the boxer an upper hand? Okay, so an MMA fighter might have the advantage when it comes to a bout, but there are some techniques in boxing that might render them helpless. For example, as we mentioned earlier, boxers have a much more powerful punch. And that's not all. Their hand speed is far superior, which means they can land faster punches and really pound their opponent into the ground. This also means they have an excellent jab, which can really help when it comes to keeping your opponent away. Moving on, their footwork is better than any other combat sport, and they change angles super fast to land a lethal punch. And lastly, they are trained to fight for longer periods as compared to MMA fighters. That's right, a boxer is used to fighting for 12 rounds, which are about 3 minutes each. And when it comes to MMA, they only fight for 5 rounds, which are each 5 minutes long. So in a way, they can last 11 minutes longer in a ring. Following up, what things will work in the MMA fighter's favor? Alright, so when it comes to throwing punches and better cardio, boxers are definitely your guys. But an MMA fighter definitely has a more versatile set of skills that might even help them take their opponent out before they manage to say, "How do you do?" Of course, you don't fight fire with fire. Instead, you get your biggest buckets of water out. And MMA fighters have 2 buckets that might land them a victory very easily. The first one is, of course, takedown and submission. If you're afraid of the boxer's punches, then duck under them and sweep them off their legs for a takedown. This will take the fight straight to the ground, which is where all MMA fighters thrive. The other method is using their boxing stance against them. So you know how boxers stand a little sideways? Now, while this might actually be really good for moving away from punches, it doesn't do well when it comes to keeping yourself safe from leg kicks. So rapid kicks to the same spot will make it impossible to fight, leading to the boxer falling to the ground. And well, we all know what's going to happen next. Now, let's throw all the rules out of the window. When it comes to a street fight, we think that a boxer just won't have what it takes to pull through. But it's important to know that this just might not be the case every single time. So we know that boxers have speed, stamina, and strength on their side. Well, if they know what they're doing and are able to fully use these abilities to their advantage, then no MMA fighter will be able to hold them down. But the thing is that someone with an MMA background will have an understanding of different sorts of martial arts, so all of their muscles throughout the body will be able to help them out and deal with an attack that comes their way. And if the fight gets taken to the ground, then it's game over for the boxer. That's all we have for boxers versus MMA fighters in a battle of their strengths. Now let's head into 5 boxing versus MMA fights that would have completely rocked our world. First up, we have Anthony Johnson versus Bobby Gunn. Okay, we know that Gunn isn't the best boxer out there, but his name is definitely on the top of the list when it comes to the bare-knuckle fighting circuit, so it would definitely be a lot of fun to see him throw his famous mean punches. And word on the street is that during brutal fights, he somehow manages to unlock his inner strength. Now we dare you to look look us in the eye and say that you wouldn't have fun seeing an unbridled gunfight versus Anthony Johnson. Johnson, in our opinion, would be the perfect match for Gunn. He's known to be the most skilled and gruesome knockout artist. Now, a fight between them would be one to remember. Moving on, Oscar De La Hoya and Nick Diaz. What's a bout without a little bit of style? Now we know that if such a matchup were to take place, then the fans will go in full frenzy mode. Besides, this fight would check off two of the most important requirements for Diaz himself. One, he gets to punch someone. Two, he'll be making a lot of money while doing just that. Sounds like the perfect match. And as for the fights, they're both extremely respected and feared in their respective sports. Diaz holds an MMA record of 26-9 with 13 knockouts. As for De La Hoya, his boxing record stands at 39-6 with 30 knockouts. We won't be wrong to say that the anticipation of such a fight might just end up being far more exciting than the showdown itself. But sadly, with both of them retired, we probably won't get to see them facing each other. Next, Anderson Silva and Roy Jones Jr. Out of all the fights on the list, this one actually almost became a reality. That's right, our dreams of watching a Silva versus Jones Jr. bout almost became true. The reason why things didn't materialize was that Silva wasn't as famous at the time, and UFC didn't want its top fighter to get in the ring to face a boxer. Seems like it was more of a business decision. But one thing is for sure, the fight would definitely have been very interesting. Currently, Silva has an MMA record of 34-8 with 20 knockouts. And as for Roy Jones Jr., he's got 47 knockouts with a record of 65-9. Now this definitely would have been one to remember, and we bet that any matchup between them was going to be far more interesting than the one we saw take place between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. But here's something interesting. The rumors of this fight taking place haven't died completely, especially considering the fact that Silva is still an active MMA fighter, and as for Jones Jr., he only retired in 2017. So if the pitch is good enough, Roy might just put on his gloves one more time and step into the ring to face Silva. Now for Mike Tyson and Fedor Emelianenko. In the early parts of his career, Emelianenko was persistently compared to Mike Tyson, so you've got to admit it would be phenomenal to put both of them against one another. The thing about Emelianenko is that he finished off his opponents quickly, which might work out to his advantage, but he's not facing anyone ordinary. We've got to remember that it's Mike Tyson and his 44 knockouts on the other side, so things are bound to get interesting. Last but definitely the most interesting one, Muhammad Ali and Jon Jones. Now this is a fight we'd be willing to sell our souls for. The MMA legend and the boxing legend facing each other, that's the stuff dreams are made of. What's interesting is that Jones was heavily inspired by Ali and used his catchphrase in his own UFC entrance music, so it would be very interesting to see how things work out between them. Jones with his record of 23-1 and Muhammad Ali with 56-5 and 37 knockouts. This is definitely the ultimate boxing versus MMA fantasy fight. That's a wrap for this video, folks. Who do you think will win a street fight? A boxer or an MMA fighter? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more awesome videos like this. See you in the next one with the latest updates.